Whenever you see world leaders meeting with all the handshakes and the photo ops, have you ever wondered what's really going on behind the scenes? There's this incredibly complex, ancient system that dictates how countries actually talk to each other. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of diplomacy. I love this quote from Winston Churchill, mostly because he actually coined the term summit right here back in 1950. Think about it. It was the beginning of the Cold War, tensions were incredibly high, and he was basically saying, hey, maybe leaders talking face to face is a better idea than, nuclear annihilation.
So yeah, that whole parlay of the summit thing, it's something we see all the time now. Leaders of the G20, the EU, you name it. But what we don't always see is the invisible architecture that makes all of those meetings even possible. So what exactly are the rules of this global game?
That's the thing. Those summits are just the most visible part of a huge global system. They're really just the tip of the iceberg. What's holding it all up is this deep foundation of rules and traditions that have been built up over literally thousands of years. And that foundation is what we're going to dig into. Okay, so let's start with the physical places where diplomacy happens every single day. Embassies. These buildings aren't just offices. They operate under a very special and honestly, a very misunderstood set of rules. All right here we are busting a huge myth. A lot of us think an embassy is technically foreign soil, right? Well, that's not actually true. It's still the host country's territory, but, and this is a big but, international law makes it inviolable. So what does that mean? Basically, local police can't just storm in. And that whole idea of being untouchable, that's tied to this core concept, diplomatic immunity. You can think of it as a legal shield. It protects diplomats from being arrested, detained, or prosecuted where they work. And the whole point is to make sure they can do their job without being bullied or intimidated by the host government. And look, these aren't just some handshake agreements or old customs. They are all written down, codified, in the 1961 Vienna Convention. This thing is the absolute bedrock of modern diplomacy. As you can see, it covers the big stuff. Embassy grounds are off limits. The diplomatic bag, which carries secret messages, can't be opened, and the diplomats themselves are protected from arrest. Oh, and here's a quick but super useful distinction: an embassy versus a consulate. Think of it this way. The embassy is like the corporate headquarters. It's in the capital city, run by the ambassador, and it handles all the big-picture political stuff. Consulates are more like the local branch offices, spread out in other big cities, to help citizens and businesses with practical things, like getting passports and visas. So how on earth did we get here? I mean, these rules didn't just pop out of nowhere. They're the result of a long, winding diplomatic journey that goes back almost 5,000 years. I mean, the first treaties we know of were literally carved in stone back in ancient Mesopotamia. But the real game changer was Renaissance Italy, which came up with the idea of a permanent ambassador actually living in a foreign capital. From there, you get huge moments like the Peace of Westphalia, which basically created the modern nation-state, all the way up to 1961 when the Vienna Convention finally put it all into one global rulebook. And for most of that history, leaders meeting in person? No way. It was just way too dangerous. I mean, check this out. Back in 1419, the Duke of Burgundy shows up for a peace meeting, and to show good faith, he walks through the gate and is immediately assassinated. These summit meetings we see today are a truly modern thing, only made possible by stuff like air travel and, well, the threat of nuclear weapons. Which brings us all the way back to the modern system. That number right there, 193. That's how many nations have officially signed on to the Vienna Convention. To put that in perspective, that is almost every country on Earth. It makes it one of the most successful and universally adopted treaties in the history of the world. That's how vital these rules are. All right, so we've got the rules, we've got the history. Now let's talk about the modern playbook. How is diplomacy actually done in the 21st century? You can pretty much split diplomacy into two main flavors. First, you have bilateral diplomacy. That's the classic one-on-one negotiation between two countries. Then you've got multilateral diplomacy, which is more like a group project. That's when lots of countries get together in places like the UN to try and solve massive global problems. But here's a really crucial modern idea. Diplomacy is not just for government officials anymore. We now talk about multi-track diplomacy. So track 1 is the official stuff, the presidents and diplomats. But then you have these other layers, like track 2, which are these unofficial back channels where academics and experts can talk freely. And track 3 goes all the way down to the grassroots level to build peace from the ground up. And if you want a perfect example of how this works in the real world, just look at the Oslo Accords.
That landmark peace deal didn't start with politicians. Nope. It started as a secret Track 2 project in Norway. Academics from both sides met, built trust, and floated ideas without any media pressure. That laid the entire foundation that allowed the official Track 1 diplomats to step in and seal the deal. So that multi-track system was a huge leap forward. But today, diplomacy is going through an even bigger, more radical shakeup, and it's all being driven by technology.
I mean, just think about the shift. Classical diplomacy was slow, it was super secretive, and it was controlled by governments. Digital diplomacy, it's instant, it's public, and it can be pretty chaotic. Instead of secret cables, leaders are now doing Twiplomacy. And the gatekeepers of information aren't governments anymore. They're giant tech platforms. So suddenly, the game has all these new players. You've got tech companies making decisions that have huge diplomatic consequences. You have social media influencers who can shape global opinion. And yeah, you have states weaponizing all of this, using trolls and bots to fight actual information wars. And that brings us to the darker side of this new frontier, information warfare. This is when countries deliberately use disinformation, cyber attacks, and psychological operations as tools of statecraft. The goal isn't just to win an argument, it's to completely destabilize your rivals. What this leads to is something called hybrid threats. The line between being at peace and being at war gets really, really blurry. Conflicts today aren't just fought on battlefields. They're fought across our social media feeds and through our digital infrastructure, using disinformation to sow chaos from the inside out. And all of that leaves us with this one critical question, doesn't it? The Vienna Convention, this whole system we've been talking about, was designed for a world of ambassadors and secret messages. But in an age of instant tweets, digital warfare, and global trolls, can those same rules, that same spirit of diplomacy, actually still keep the peace?